Chapter 6. After my first encounter with the gambling duo, Sin and Mogong, I had to control the urge to go back and see them the next day. If I ventured out again so soon, it would arouse suspicion in my family, and then my adventure would end prematurely. I looked out from our second floor window, trying to get a glimpse of the gambling pit, but all I could see was the cold wind making the sugarcane leaves dance like the ocean waves. Mom and Dad want us to grow up to be perfect kids so that our ugly political birthmark would be obliterated. They hoped one day that all those leaders would wake up and say, "Hey, you guys are a bunch of wonderful kids. Come on, let's get you into school and offer you jobs." If we fought against her belief, Mom would cite the example of a girl from a neighboring town, Li Jun. She too came from a landlord's family, but she had been recently selected by the commune to work in a food canning store, a juicy plum of a job that any child of a good family would kill to get. She left town on the back of the commune's tractor wearing a big paper flower on her flat chest as she rode down the street of Yellowstone in all her glory. No one could forget the tears and smiles of joy on her pretty face. She was the 1,000 that the communist rulers used to illustrate their benevolent policy toward us. The message was that if you were obedient, a future might be handed down to you. We all knew this wasn't true and listened to it as though it were the western wind blowing in one ear and out the other. It made us want to puke. Children like us all over the commune were still getting beaten up and thrown out of school. Even those who had obtained good jobs and had been afforded a college education before the Cultural Revolution were sent back to the town of their birth to become re-educated. Sometimes they were even jailed if they rebelled against local ignorance. Zhu Eng, the son of a counter-revolutionary, was clubbed to death in the bushes by his college classmates at a Shanghai university. All his family received was a jar containing their son's ashes and a police statement saying he had taken his own life and had wasted the government's investment in him. Mom still disciplined us strictly. Cynicism wasn't allowed in our family. Her belief was that we would do more and get less. When people spit at you, look the other way. When they curse at you, pretend to be deaf. If she found out about my visit to the gambling pit, I'd be grounded for at least 3 days. But boredom and the need to make friends got the better of me. The next day, I took some cigarettes from Dad's drawer and sneaked back into the sugarcane fields. Mogong and Sin treated me coolly, as if they'd forgotten our united work such a short time ago. But they smoked my cigarettes and let me try some of theirs. It was the first time I'd smoked with the big league. Mogong showed me how to inhale without it hurting too much. Smaller puffs at first, he said. I felt the rush to my head, numbing and soothing at the same time. I washed my mouth with handfuls of water by the river before heading home. Once I got home, I didn't speak until I had some garlic onions and a lot of soup to mask the foul scent. The next day, Sin let me sit next to him for good luck and showed me the way he handled cards. I was so flattered by his trust. I kept on nodding, feigning ignorance of the game. The third day, Mogong wanted me to sit with him and even let me pick the amount to bet. For the rest of the sessions, they coached me on their sign language. They had me standing at another table opposite their other two friends, Yi and Cyan, where I scratched my head and picked my nose to give away their competitors' cards. They kept winning. The fourth day, I was late in coming to the field. "Where have you been?" Sin asked. "Come sit here by me. I've been losing too much money without you being here." He ruffled my hair, threw me a whole pack of unopened cigarettes, and let me cut the cards for good luck. As I lit my first cigarette of the day, I smiled. It was very satisfying to be missed by these hooligans. That evening, after the four of them split their money, I went home, wrapped up some of Mom's sweet rice cakes, and shared them with my new friends. They fought like hungry dogs and ate with dirty hands. After they were done, they wiped their mouths with the corners of their jackets and ran their greasy hands through their unruly hair so that it would look shiny. "No matter how shiny your hair is, you still look ugly, Sin," Mogong joked. "You look even worse," Sin retorted, touching his hair. Okay, you both look ugly," Cyan laughed. They started hitting each other for fun. Yi grabbed my hair with his greasy hands and we started wrestling. Later, we took a stroll to the marketplace near the theater and used some of the gambling money to buy candies and more cigarettes. We laughed, talked, and joked until midnight. Then, reluctantly, I told them I had to go home. In my household, it was way beyond bedtime, even though it was still the New Year's holiday period. They pushed me around jokingly, and Sang lifted me up to his shoulders. Then they said goodbye. I lay in bed and couldn't go to sleep for a long time. Their laughter, their faces, the way of saying things, and the way they had included me like a real friend replayed in my mind like a colorful film. They had never once mentioned that I was from a landlord's family. They called me Little Punk because I was 3 or 4 years younger, weighed 20 pounds less, and measured a head shorter. With them, I felt the freedom to say and do whatever I wanted without worrying that they might report me to the school authorities. My enemies at school looked conniving and petty in comparison. If they thought they were bad, wait till they saw these guys. I drifted off into a sound sleep, hoping tomorrow would come quickly. As the holiday came to an end, the seasonal gambling activities also died away. Once all the New Year's money had been won, lost, and spent, the 5 of us began to hang out at their usual spots. Their favorite was the stone bridge where the Dongjing River crossed our narrow street. The thoughtful architect had built a row of stone seats along the bridge where we would sit in the evenings, chatting and watching townspeople come and go. Mo Gong and Sin would make rude comments to passing females, then laugh like a bunch of monkeys when the girls scolded them and called them ruffians who belonged in jail. My friends seemed to take pleasure in anything that stimulated them and in making fools of themselves. Soon I came to know their personalities and the hierarchy that existed within the group. Sin, 15, was the lead dog. He had the brains and audacity. He was born the middle brother of 5 who fought one another at home every day. His dad worked for a bank in a faraway town near the salt factory along the coast. Sent money home once a month and visited every 3rd month. His mom raised the 5 boys like a single parent. Each day she could be found chasing one of her unruly sons with a long wooden stick, cursing her ancestors for giving her these demons to torture her in this life. She was often busy in the fields doing farm work, so Sin's elder brother would be in charge of cooking for the family. The cook often ate up most of the food, and whoever came home late got nothing. Once Sin was detained by the commune's police because someone had accused him of setting fire to a watchman's little hut. When the police came to notify his mother and ask her to take him home, she said, "He's not my son. Do whatever you want with him," and shut the door in the cop's face. The poor officer, who was prepared to give a long lecture to the mother, left confused and disappointed. They let Sin out without a scratch. Mo Gong, also 15, distinguished himself by almost killing someone with a big knife when he was 13. Years later, the sheer size of the weapon still shocked people. He grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. His mom and dad secretly made shoes behind closed doors and sold them in the black market. Mo Gong was born a rough kid and couldn't stay out of trouble. His mouth said the wrong things and his hands were always out of control. He had an endless need to touch and hit things. No matter how hard his parents tried to discipline him, it never worked. They had hung him by the wrists, locked him up, and whipped him till his butt was red and swollen. He always went back to the old ways. He stole money from home to buy cigarettes, liquor, and food. The reputations of Sin and Mo Gong were so bad that whenever there was a theft or fire, they were always the first suspects. Their alibis always lacked credibility, and they often ended up being blamed for what they didn't do. When that was the case, they got very angry with the people who had framed them and added their names to their long revenge list. Pretty soon, half the town was on that list. Sin and Mo Gong took their time getting their revenge, little things here and there, like a chicken missing or a plot of vegetables ruined. They never left any evidence behind. It was their way of venting their feelings of being constantly maligned. Sang became the friend by default. He was a good-looking 14-year-old from a wealthy family. His grandfather was an old revolutionary who had helped the Communist Army occupy Putin and now received a big salary for doing nothing. He had used some of that money to build a huge 3-storied home. Sayeng's mother was a nurse in a nearby hospital, and his father was a cadre in charge of a shoe factory. Sayeng hated school and loved gambling. One year he lost so much money to Sin and Mogong that they were going to make him pay them back by stripping off his expensive clothes. He had begged for mercy and agreed to pay the debt by buying them cigarettes for the next year. They became really good friends when Sayeng got kicked out by his parents and Mogong took him in. They slept in the same bed for a week before Sayeng got enough money to buy a ticket to go to Fuzhou to his grand aunt, who was the president of the Women's Federation in the province of Fujian. That left Yi, a short 15-year-old, who had become a carpenter at the age of 12. He had goldfish eyes and bow legs. His parents had died young, and his grandpa had sent him away to be an apprentice at the age of 10. Yi said the first thing he learned from his carpenter master was how to slice his tobacco leaves and roll them into perfect rolls. Another early carpentry lesson taught Yi how to chat nonstop while working, because it made one forget about the boredom and entertain others at the same time. Then Yi's master died suddenly, and Yi was forced to leave his apprenticeship 2 years ahead of time. His grandpa brought him home and set up a shop for him at the back of the street. He had been in business ever since. He smoked bitter tobacco, drank strong tea constantly, and could go on chatting for hours without boring himself. He made all sorts of furniture for neighbors. But he was, after all, still a young boy, and his heart was out there on the street. Sin and Mogong often went to Yi's shop to swipe tobacco leaves when cash was low, and the urge to smoke was clawing at them. In return, they had to keep the lonely carpenter company while he worked and endure listening to the same topics Yi had covered 100 times before. But it wasn't a bad deal, really. When they were on the run from their parents or the law, Yi's humble workshop offered all they needed. It was out of the way in a back alley. Tobacco leaves hung drying from the ceiling, liquor was kept nearby in Yi's toolbox, and food came from Grandpa's kitchen. They couldn't even sleep on a warm blanket on the soft sawdust. On occasion, the shop was used as a gambling den. Yi spent more and more time with the gang and became a part-time carpenter and a full-time street kid. Friendship endured. Before I went back to school, I became an inseparable part of the now 5-member gang. When school begun, the group hung around the marketplace, harassed a few merchants, and bought candy and cigarettes. Then they climbed over the low wall at the back of my school and whistled to signal their arrival. As soon as the bell rang, I ran to the designated spot where they lifted me up and threatened to toss me in the pond. Jumping back over the low wall, we lit cigarettes and made our plans for the day. In school, I became sunnier and more confident. The results of last semester's countrywide examination showed I was the best student in 4th grade, putting Group 1 and La Chan's cronies to shame. In the hallways, the Group 1 children still gave me dirty looks. Once, when I passed the son of the party chief, he said, "Grades mean nothing. You are still a landlord's son." Then he laughed, showing his teeth like a vicious animal. My teacher, Mr. Lan, took me aside and told me the same thing. Don't let your good grades get you. It soon dawned on me that it was a sin to have scored so high and to have focused attention on myself. Now, in addition to the usual scorn, there was jealousy. I could do nothing right, but it no longer bothered me as much. When classes were over, I would see my friends again and would forget all about school. I no longer stayed up nights, plotting and scheming. Han, Q, and Wang were still hateful, but now they were only small annoyances, little buzzing flies.